Greeting Missouri educators and welcome to this session of CTEL Summer Institute 2020. My name is Cami Goucher and I am the ELD and World Languages Coordinator in the Office of College and Career Readiness at DESE. And I'm going to be sharing a session with you today that's called A Vision for Equity for English Language Learners in Missouri. Let me pull that presentation up for you and we will begin. So I'm going to start by sharing with you some statistics for Missouri. Starting in 2010, I went back and discovered that we had 19,982 English learners enrolled in our schools. In January of 2020, we had 35,771. That's an increase over those 10 years of 15,789 students. As you can see by looking at the chart, it has been a steady increase of about 10% each year. And this is consistent across the United States. Over half of the states in our nation are seeing about a 10% growth each year. And English language learners are the fastest growing subgroup in our nation. There's a link here at the bottom of this screen from the Department of Education, federal government, that gives you some statistics on where the most English language learners are located and the numbers in each area. Some very interesting information. All right, so we have three types of ELs in Missouri and across the nation. First are immigrants who are born in another country and move to the United States. Typically, these students are older, and some of them have had some formal education, but there are several that have interrupted or very limited education. We've gotten a lot of high school age students who come and have never completed more than second grade in their home countries. So that's very typical. We also have students who were born in the US to foreign-born parents, and the majority of our English learners in Missouri fall into this category. However, I am seeing that we have moved to second and third generation to where the grandparents were the ones that were born in another country, and the parents and the children were both born in the United States. They're still language learners, but they were both born here in the States. The third category that we have are adoptees, students whose parents are English speakers and have gone to other countries and adopted foreign children and brought them to the United States. And these students primarily, typically lose their language in about 6 months. They no longer understand or are able to speak in their home language, which is kind of sad. All right, speaking about languages, according to core data, we have 170 different languages in the state of Missouri. 57% of those are Spanish. 4% are English, and I'll clarify that a little bit. Those students that we said were born here in the United States, they typically grow up learning English and they start losing their home language. It's a sad thing, but their parents are insisting that they learn English, and so most of the conversations they have with them are English. They are not proficient in English. It's a broken English, but when they enroll their children, they list English as their primary language because they don't speak the home language very well. So that's where that English comes in. Then we have 3% Somali, 3% Bosnian, 2% Vietnamese, Swahili, Chinese, and Russian, and the other languages are 1% or less. All right. This is the federal definition of what an English language learner is. Typically, they're between 3 and 21. They either are born in another country or their language is one that's other than English, so much so that it affects their reading, writing, and speaking, and prohibits them from being successful in a classroom or the English society. The way that we find out if a student is an English language learner is through, or is initiated through a language use survey. And the language survey starts with 3 questions. It's given an enrollment. So the first question says, what is your child's first language? Then which language does your child use or speak at home and with others? And third, which language does your child hear at home and understand? If the answer to any of these questions is something other than English, then that signals that whoever does the screening for your district should screen this student to determine whether or not they are an English language learner. So they become a potential English language learner at this point. All right. So here are the 5 steps. We give the language use survey. If it indicates something other than English, we screen them. We determine whether they meet the eligibility criteria. If they do, we notify parents within 30 days and tell them that the results of the test and that they will be placed in a program. And then we code them in the core data, which in Missouri is MOSIS, and then we start services. And students remain in services until they reach proficiency. And in Missouri, we exit students based on the Access Language Proficiency Test. And proficiency on this test is set at 4.7 or above. So once a student reaches that 4.7 level, then they should be exited. However, there are cases where there is a false positive or a false negative. So we have had students that test really well and really are not ready to be exited. And in those cases, we keep portfolio evidence throughout the year, which enables us to look back at what we've gathered on those students and determine whether or not they truly are ready to exit or if they need to stay in the program. So if they've scored a 4.7 or above, but we have evidence from their classroom and from classroom performance that proves that they aren't quite ready, then they can remain in the program. On the other hand, if they score just below a 4.7 in one area or two, and we feel that it was just a bad test day for them, that they really perform comparable to the English speaking students or other students in the classroom, then we can use that portfolio evidence to either continue or stop services for them. Most of the English learners in Missouri fall in the level 3-4 proficiency range. Levels 1 and 2 are mostly our newcomers or students who have been here 2 years or less. Students at levels 1 and 2 generally progress really quickly to the next level because they start picking up words rapidly. But when they hit level 3.5 and get close to 4, they tend to slow down as that academic language is more what they're learning, and it's a little more difficult. And a lot of times this is when they've gotten up to a little higher in the grades, and the classrooms have started taking away some of the visuals and some of those supports that our English language learners need so much. So there are some things that we have to deal with and some extra effort that we have to put into getting them tested out at this level. The levels 5 and 6 are typically those students who should be tested out, but they may have scored poorly in one area or two, and so they were kept in until they improve their scores. But that's where the majority of our students are. We also have, as far as instructional models, most of our classrooms are still pull-out models of some sort. where we're pulling students from the classroom and giving them instruction in another classroom, which is has proven to be not the best for our students, best practices in most cases, but it's the easiest to implement based on numbers of students and classroom sizes and stuff. It's not as equitable, but it is usually easier. All right, so what is the best practices? Well, studies have shown that this two-way immersion is the best practice. And it's where we have both English speakers and other language speakers in the same classroom. And the English speakers are learning the other language, and the other language is learning English. So the students in the classroom are both language learners and language models for each other. And it has been proven that that is the most effective way of learning for these students. Second to that is teaching language through academic content rather than a grammar-based instruction. So if we use academic content to teach the language, that gives it more meaning and is more effective for the students as well. So a very interesting study. So we know that there is a major opportunity gap for English language learners. And given that the vast amount of educators are underprepared to meet their needs is a concern. Especially considering that they are the fastest growing subgroup, as I said, comprising almost 16% of our student population. So we have to do something about this to meet the needs. I found this cartoon a few years ago, and I think it's very applicable to our English language learners, even though this is directed at disabilities. The custodian here is shoveling the steps, and they ask him to please shovel the ramp. And he says, as soon as I get done here. But the student says, you know, if you shovel the ramp, we can all get in. And that's kind of how it is with our language learners as well. What works and helps our English language learners, those supports and those scaffolds and those things that make learning more accessible for them, they're generally good for all struggling students, and they'll help anyone. And if we just think of the needs of the ones who need help the most first and plan for their needs, we'll take care of the needs of everyone. So there is a need, and we need to do what we can control, and work towards fairness. This is work, and we can't just teach to the middle and hope that everyone catches it. We have to be explicit in reaching the needs of every student. You've probably seen this infographic about equality and equity, and it just brings home the point that they are not the same. Equal means you give everyone the same thing. And this is fine when you're talking about the budget for schools and you give every school the same amount of money. But equity means whatever the students' needs are, you give them what they need to help them reach their goal. So if one needs a little bit more, you give them a little bit more out of your budget. All right, the next thing, this is a new addition to this graphic, is justice. And what it says is if you eliminate the barrier, then everyone can succeed. So if we teach with every student in mind, and we do what's best for all students, then everyone's going to succeed. This student here, he has a better opportunity of seeing the game because he can see over the fence. He doesn't have anything in his field of vision. This middle student, it depends on where the ball is on the field. They may have difficulty, but for the most part, they can see just fine, and they have nothing in their way. The other student can see fine as well, but they have other obstacles in their way that might impede them a little bit, but still they can see the goal. They still can get there easily. So we've removed the major barrier that helps everyone to succeed. All right. In Missouri, speaking of equity, of the 278 districts that have English language learners, only 55 have ratios that are equal to or better than the district ratio. This means that 223 districts do not. 12 districts have 20 or more students, but don't have an English language development teacher in their district. 106 of those 278 districts that have fewer than 20 students don't have an ESL teacher or an ELD teacher in their district. That means these students do not have a teacher who's trained and experienced in dealing with their specific needs. These students are being served by counselors and special reading teachers. Sometimes the principal themselves is working with them, but they don't have a qualified designated person who's addressing their specific needs. That is not equity. That's something we need to work on. We're also not equitable to our ELD teachers because, as I said, state and federal guidelines say that the ratio should mirror the classroom. And right now in Missouri, our classroom ratio is about 17:1. Most ELD classrooms are 50 to 60:1. That is not equitable. And on top of that, our ELD teachers have to know ELD standards, grade level standards, how to work with different proficiency levels for all the grades that they serve. So if you have an ELD teacher that's serving kindergarten to high school, they're having to learn 12 grade levels of standards and for all the different classrooms, as well as the ELD standards for 12 different grade levels. That is not equitable. And if you're lumping them into, trying to fit that into one school day, you're either missing serving some of the students, or you're putting large groups in one classroom that are all different proficiency levels, which does not help the student nor the teacher. It's difficult to have that many different levels in one classroom at a time. So that's not equitable. Plus, if they're coming from different classrooms, each teacher is teaching something slightly different or in a different way or from a different book. So it's difficult to reach all the needs. So there has to be a different way of doing things. On top of this, the ELD teacher has paperwork requirements, state reporting, data files that they have to deal with. They have to test any new student that comes in and give them that screener as soon as they come in within 30 days. They have to do benchmarks. They have to do the annual testing that takes sometimes several weeks. They're required by federal law to do parent contact. Sometimes they're asked to do translating and interpreting if they're able. And they're also supposed to be an instructional leader that offers support and guidance to the classroom teacher on how to work with their ESL students. In the 18 plus years that I was an EL specialist and coordinator in my previous district, I had 4 high school teachers leave, and these are ELD teachers that completely left the profession. We had 5 middle school ELD teachers that left, and 4 elementary that left ESL and no longer wanted to be an ESL teacher because they felt siloed and overwhelmed with what they had to were expected to do. We're having a very difficult time finding people who want to be ESL teachers. So I applaud you for your interest and for your attending these sessions and classes, because we need you. We need ESL teachers in our state, and we need to find something that works for our ESL students. So thank you. EL students are everyone's kids, and we are all English language teachers. So we all need to work together. We need to work on both integrated and designated English language development. And by designated, the English language development teacher can work with those students with the greatest needs for language development. For integrated, we need to equip our classroom and content teachers with the skills and the scaffolds and the understanding of how to work with these students so that they can remain in the classroom and get a quality of education that they need. And it's not that our classroom and content teachers don't want to work with them. They don't have the skills and the tools that they need to work with them effectively. So that's one of our goals and what we're working on for the state of Missouri. That's my vision. We also have in our state MEL specialists in 5 regions that are responsible for helping you and our ELD teachers. Their focus is for professional development, but they are there to answer phone calls and help you with anything that they can. You're also welcome to call me or email me at any time. As I said, I have 18 years of experience working with English language learners. I have a lot of lessons in my toolbox, and I've given lots of professional development over the years. I even did flipped learning and was a technology trainer for a while. So anything I can do to help, I am very willing to assist you in any way possible, because we are all academic language learners and we're all academic language teachers. And if we shovel that ramp, we can all get in. So how to contact us? As I said, you have MEL regional specialists in your area. Guadalupe is near Kansas City. Rob is near St. Louis. Cynthia is in the north central area. Julie is in the southeast, and Merica is in the southwest and lower central part of Missouri. And they are all very helpful and great people to work with. And then this is my information. Again, contact me anytime. I'm very happy and willing to work with you. That's what I do, and I love my job. Enjoy the rest of your summit, and please give me a holler, and have a great day and a great year.